discussion, wrap up, and next steps. And next. Okay, so first we wanted to introduce you all to the members of our sustainability office, because all of us, the 6 of us in the office, are working behind the scenes to put all this together and kind of coordinate it all. And we just wanted you to know who the faces and names are behind our staff. So I'll start it off with Alicia Zatkoff.
Thanks, Wendy. Hi, everyone. I am the sustainability manager and honored to lead this awesome team of folks in our office. And my role in this planning process is I'm not facilitating one particular group, but I'm just supporting everyone else on our team with all of the groups. And I'm happy at any time if anyone has questions about the overall process or anything that our office is working on, to please feel free to contact me at any time. And I will turn it over to Brianne.
Hey everybody, I'm Brianne Fisher. I am the sustainability coordinator with the office, and my role within the RVAgreen 2050 process is to support one of our other working groups, the environment working group, as well as support the whole team on the overall planning process, as well as the racial equity and environmental justice roundtable, along with some of our other team members. I will pass it to Kyla.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kyla Logan. I am the Management and GIS Analyst for the Sustainability Office. For the RVAgreen process, I'm supporting the Environment Group as well as the Community Group, and I'll be supporting all groups when it comes to data needs and mapping needs. All right, I'm going to pass it on to Kendra.
Hi, I'm Kendra. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator in the office, and my role is to make sure this plan has community engagement involved in the process and brought out to the community and that brought back into the process. I also will be working with the community group and the roundtable, and I'll pass on to Wendy.
Okay, I'm Wendy Fuster. I'm the Climate Action Coordinator. So I'll be helping with Dawn co-manage 3 of our working groups. So we've got the waste working group, the transportation, and buildings and energy. And within the office, I do a variety of mitigation type projects. So, and I will pass it over to Dawn.
All right, Wendy introduced me. You know me as the co-facilitator on this working group. Like she said, we oversee the 3 technical working groups. Buildings and energy met yesterday to go through this exercise. Waste was this morning, and now you guys are finishing it off for us. So we're really excited to get your feedback. And Climate Action Program and Operations Supervisor just means trying to help to implement the strategies and projects and programs that will reduce our carbon footprint. So that's mostly what kind of falls under me. I'll pass it back to Wendy.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all. And we'll go on to the next slide. Okay, so just to go over our ground rules again, we had these from our first meeting. We have added a couple since then. So number 11 there is speak from your own lived experience. So, you know, just because you might be a member of a certain profession or type of group doesn't mean that everybody in that group shares the same thoughts or feelings as you. So just speak from the I perspective and not the we when you talk about some things with that. And then the number 12 there, language 101. So acronyms, new terms, you know, every field of work has its own acronyms and terminology. And some people, even though we're all in the transportation working group, there might be things that are specific to some forms of transportation that aren't familiar to others with the group. So just please to go ahead and spell out what those mean or explain them if people need help with that. And if you don't understand a term, feel free to just raise your hand and ask the question.
Let me just say we are recording this so that folks who aren't here can view it later. And I just want to make sure everyone knows that and is okay with that. So please speak up the way, because I'm sharing my screen, I can't see everyone's face at once. So if you're waving at me, I don't necessarily see you, please put it in the chat and I'm happy to help.
Okay, thanks. Okay, next up, okay, so next up, we're gonna do a little icebreaker. And in this, what we'll be doing is Dawn's gonna help separate us out into little breakout groups. And we're just going to talk amongst ourselves, it's an opportunity to get to know each other a little bit better, and also talk about some ways that we could make our holidays a little bit more sustainable over the next couple weeks or so. So just some ideas you can do. So anyway, in just a minute, you'll be popped into your group. You'll have about a minute a person, I guess, to talk about different ideas. And then we'll come back and share what some of those great ideas might be.
All right, here you go.
All right. We got folks coming back in. Okay. Does anyone want to share from their group any ideas they might have had to help make this season a little more sustainable?
Yeah, our group really talked about 3 aspects that could go well for this holiday cheer. One was traveling, is just keeping that minimized and doing it in the sustainable ways, or if you're traveling, do it in sustainable ways. Also using Christmas trees that are real in some aspect than fake ones, because if you get them from organic farms and then compost it, can be very good. And mine was suppress my family need for extra lights in the front yard. So yeah.
Great. Right. Anyone else? Those are good ones. With the tree thing in our waste group earlier this morning too, we had our Kim from CBWMA, and they do the Christmas tree recycling event every year. So I think she said it would be on January 9th this year up by the Diamond at the recycling center there. So bring one for the chipper, as they say, and go ahead and take your tree there afterwards, and they will turn it into mulch, like Anthony was saying. So anyway, all right, well, unless anybody else has a great idea, we will move on. So we're just going to try and do some recapping of the equity discussions we've had in our first couple meetings. So just kind of to start off again, big picture, RVAgreen 2050, what we're trying to do is an integrated approach to climate action planning. So trying to integrate equity into our planning, which is a fairly new thing. And so Richmond's kind of at the forefront of this. There are a couple other cities that are working on this too. So we're really working hard to try and make this all work together. So we're trying to integrate our climate resilience planning, preparing for any impacts that are coming with climate change, like increased heat or sea level rise, along with climate action, which is the reducing of the greenhouse gas emissions that we're worried about, and then centering all that around equity. So we're trying to, do all that. So anyway, okay, next step in city planning. So the city has had a number of plans over the years that have to do with this. So the first RVAgreen sustainability plan was put out in 2012. And then since then, the city has built on that type of action with various other plans. So we've got some multimodal plans, we've got clean water plans, Vision Zero plans, regional housing frameworks. And the latest one that just got passed earlier this week by the City Council was the Richmond 300 Master Plan. So the comprehensive planning for the city. And I know a lot of you probably had inputs into that planning process. And then also this year, our net zero resolution was passed by City Council, which is what we're working on now, is how do we get there? So in 2021, we're gonna have our RVAgreen 2050 roadmap, which you all are all going to help produce. So, great. So again, we're trying to kind of center these 3 different things. We've got our equity, we have climate action, and we have the climate resilience that we talked about a couple slides ago. So we're trying to kind of bring in our planning to where all of these things intersect. So we'll be doing some capacity building, or we've been doing that with the equity. We've had some listening sessions in the community. We have our environmental justice roundtable that has been providing a lot of foundational work that we'll be building off of. And then we'll also be getting some equity tools and resources. And then for climate action, we'll be getting we have some technical modeling that's being done for us that we'll be able to use to help see how different strategies might help us get to our goals by 2050. And that'll be helped with the technical working groups. And then the climate resilience will also next month be doing some risk and vulnerability assessment learning and working on that aspect of the plan also. And then they all kind of come together in the center and will help produce RVAgreen 2050. And then as far as the timeline process, in 2017 started with the pre-planning through 2019. So a lot of foundational work was done over the last few years to get to the point where we're at now. And this year you can see where we are here at the end of 2020. We've done a lot of work earlier in the year, getting some ambassadors to help spread the program out to the community, do some equity training, and gathering a lot of community input. Kendra from our team has been working hard and has talked to hundreds of people in the community, or listened, I should say, to hundreds of people in the community about what they want to see for a sustainable Richmond. And then here we are right now. We've launched our roundtable and our working groups. And then starting next year, we'll be developing out the plan further and getting it prepared for adoption, with the goal of being Earth Day in 2022. We will be adopting our RVAgreen 2050 plan. So, and just so you know though too, even though we're not adopting the plan until 2022, our office is still doing a lot of work, with sustainability in the meantime. So we're not just letting things sit and not doing anything to take action on climate change in the meantime. So we're working hard.
Yeah, I just want to enunciate that, because that came up in a lot of the feedback and comments we're getting. People are like, oh, we don't want to wait till 2022 to start working on this. Well, we're not, and we have been working on it, and everyone's been working on it in their own way, but this is just creating a framework to bring it together and create some policies that are equitable to get us all on the same page moving forward.
All right, and then as far as the groups and the roles, I'll jump around a little bit, but so you just met the Sustainability Office. So we'll be the kind of the conveners of this project and the bridge between the community and the city in all this effort, and help support the community leaders throughout the process. The working groups, you guys are one of 4 technical working groups. So we have the buildings and energy, the waste, transportation, and environment. And then we also have a community working group that's doing a little bit different. They're not the technical working group, but they're kind of working as liaisons between our roundtable group. So we have our roundtable, who is helping us center our plan in equity and elevating the frontline community voices in there, and helping with their shared lived experience. Just so that we make sure we center this process around the equity of that. And let's see, so our task is going to be to draft what we're calling SMARTY strategies. So again, at that nexus of the climate action, resilience, and equity intersection there. So we want to make sure that strategies we develop help address some of the 7 community priorities that have been identified, help reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and help increase resilience to these future climate impacts. And every strategy might not do every one of these things, but we want to at least be considering these things as we develop our strategies and see how we can reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. So a lot of you I know have heard of SMART strategies, as far as strategic, measurable, ambitious, realistic, and time-bound. So we want to take that a step further and create SMARTY strategies. So we're also going to be inclusive and equitable in our strategy development. So just as an example of that at the bottom, so a SMART strategy might be, okay, we're going to build a volunteer team of 100 door-to-door canvassers by May. Well, to take that into a SMARTY strategy, we say, well, okay, and at least 10 people of color are going to be recruited as volunteer leaders first, so that they can help shape the way we run those canvases. So that's just kind of an example of what we're trying to do with our strategies as we develop them. And this is to show that climate change is going to affect some people more than others, and that's the equity element. Some of the root causes in that are the racial segregation that's occurred over time in Richmond. We've got poverty, income inequality, just concentrated neighborhood disinvestment, increased neighborhood violence and crime. And some of those root causes lead to other social factors, like access to affordable or quality housing, affordable health care, green spaces, things like that. And then there are also the certain biological factors at play. So person's age, whether they have any chronic or acute illnesses like asthma or diabetes, mental or physical disabilities and things like that. So all those together kind of lead to having increased sensitivity to climate change. So we want to make sure that people who are more highly impacted are helped. You know, they might need more help in improving their situation than others do.
And I'll just jump in here because I think this is such an important point. And because we're all coming from a different lived experience, we've all seen how you know, some of our communities are already being impacted by climate change, but many of us are not just yet. And so to really pull this together, there's a video that we're going to send you a link to. It's a 40-minute video. It's really interesting. And it's our equity consultant gave a presentation about this. And if you ask a question about around this, and you ask the 5 whys, you know, why is this community, you know, have more of a heat, you know, heat island effect, and then you get an answer, and then you dig back 4 more times, most likely you're going to get to the root cause being racism, especially in Richmond. And so it's a great video. I will encourage you to watch it when we do send you the link tomorrow. And then just revisit this, because those root causes do lead to the social factors coupled with the biological factors. You know, some are just, you know, have a much increased sensitivity to climate change. And that's why the equity is the not just central concept of what we're doing, but the overarching concept.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, these maps you may have seen before, and they are available on our RVAgreen2050.com website, but this is the result of months of effort on the part of Brianne on our team and Kyla in mapping out a number of different demographic factors, economic factors, social factors. They have 39 different factors that they have compiled into these maps that you can, you know, turn on and off different layers and see different things as far as climate impacts to different neighborhoods, different communities, things like that. So, you know, on the left is kind of the overall overlay of all these factors. And then on the right, you can see the Black or African-American populations, you know, the darker colors where those neighborhoods or groups are more highly impacted by some of these things. And then at the bottom, the Hispanic and Latinx populations. So you can see where those areas are in our city that these people are more highly impacted, and those areas may need more attention. And that's kind of what the equity portion of what we're doing is all about.
Yeah, so I'll just jump in and tell you that I put a link to the climate equity tool in the chat, and you can go take a look at it any time. It's on the RVAgreen website. It's really interesting because it takes into account 39 social and demographic features, including our things like redlining and highway, you know, infrastructure, timing, and lots of social factors in addition to the demographics, and then projections on flooding and climate. So you can really see how these maps were generated, and they're really helpful.
And then on this, we want to also center equity. So racial and socioeconomic equity. Here we want to make a commitment to correct past harms and prevent future unintended consequences. So that's really a lot of what we're going to be trying to do in our plan development. And some of these different categories of inequities have been procedural ones. We want to create processes that are transparent and fair and inclusive. And make sure that everybody's treated fairly and openly. We want to make sure that the strategies are distributional, that we fairly distribute resources and the benefits and the burdens, because sometimes the great ideas that we think we have and we put into place don't benefit everybody the same. They might benefit those who really don't need it as much, to the detriment of those who do. And then we have structural ones. So we want to close any gaps so that race and economic status aren't used to predict your life outcomes, and the outcomes for all groups are improved in that process.
And I'll just speak to this. I heard Alicia put this really well once when she was speaking about what we're trying to do. We have a privilege to go back and correct those wrongs. You know, we have a voice here. We are helping to create this very important long-term planning instrument for the city of Richmond. And so what a great opportunity, and what an important one that we are privileged to do that. So we are here because we are making a commitment to correct those past harms and then prevent any future consequences based on those same wrongs.
Okay. And in this chart, we're just trying to show what the overall workflow is going to be for the different, the round table and the working groups and the technical working groups, community working group. So we're here in December at meeting number 3, and we're going to be looking at the vision statement that the roundtable has been working on drafting. And that's kind of flowed down to us. And then we're going to give some feedback to them on that. And then in January at our meetings, we'll be looking at the equity tool that they've also been working on developing. So we'll take a look at that. And then as we go along into our meetings in February, just to show that there's going to be some back and forth between the work that we do in our working groups is going to filter back up through the community working group and the roundtable to make sure that we're capturing the community priorities and the other things that they've developed for us as our guidance. And then in the end, in March, we'll have our finalized draft strategies to send out back to the community for their inputs. And right now, yep, there we are. So any questions on that? That was just kind of a summary recap of the equity learning that we've tried to do over the last couple sessions. Yeah, just to sort of bring it all back together and understand why we're talking about equity so much as we embark on this planning process. Okay, and if not, then we will get ready to launch into our breakout group exercise and our vision statement. So as I mentioned before, our Environmental Justice Roundtable has been working to put together a vision statement for the RVAgreen 2050 plan. And what will Richmond look like when the RVAgreen 2050 plan is implemented? Was the question put before them. So some examples that they were given just to use in their drafting was the RVAgreen 2050 plan and what that plan was all about. They also looked at Richmond 300 Guide for Growth. So again, that was the comp plan that was just passed. And that plan's overall vision said that in 2037, Richmond is a welcoming, inclusive, diverse, innovative, and equitable city of thriving neighborhoods, ensuring a high quality of life for all. And as a subset of that, they had the thriving environment vision that we can build off of, which Richmond is a sustainable and resilient city with healthy air, clean water, and a flourishing ecosystem. Carbon emissions are low, air and water quality are high, and citywide solid waste production is minimal. The city is positively adapting to the effects of a changing climate with a built environment that enhances and protects natural assets, including the James River. All residents have equitable access to nature and a healthy community. So those are some kind of guiding principles we can all use. Some other examples they looked at were from Portland, Oregon, Bend, Oregon, Providence. Their climate justice plan talked about their vision for a low carbon future is one where race or zip code no longer determines your health or economic outcomes. Decisions are made collectively to allow those who are most impacted to have the greatest say. They value land stewardship, clean water and land, etc. And let's see, I think we had some, yeah. And this was just sort of a word cloud that was developed to describe some of the visions of an equitable climate action plan. So you can see some of the words there: communities, green spaces, access, neighborhoods, climate change, housing, food. So all sorts of inputs there.
Yeah, and to give that a little more context, this came out of all the stakeholders that participated in listening sessions with Kendra Norrell, our community engagement coordinator. So, these are a lot of folks in frontline communities, ones who aren't necessarily represented in the different working groups, but they are having their say in other avenues and formats. And I think this is a nice word cloud to summarize their thoughts at the start of this.
All right, so now I'm going to ask Angela, who is one of our environmental justice roundtable members in our group, to go ahead and read through the draft vision statement that the roundtable has developed. And if she wants to add any commentary to that, please do. We'd appreciate it.
Yes, sure. Thank you. Hi. Yeah, so I am on I'm serving on the roundtable, and the last meeting or two or three, we've discussed coming up with a vision statement, and we kind of built this from the ground up also, like you said, Wendy, using examples, but then how to make it work for the city of Richmond. So what we have so far, and this is not a final draft, the vision of an equitable, healthy, and resilient Richmond is one where carbon emissions are net zero and a person's race, identity, socioeconomic status, or zip code does not determine life expectancy, quality of life, or economic opportunity. Everyone has equitable access across the entire city to resources that are clean, sustainable, affordable, including air, water, energy, housing, transportation, and green infrastructure. Everyone has the capacity and the resources to take ownership of equitable climate action and community resilience planning. And lastly, identity includes, but not limited to, race, ethnicity, age, ability, gender, sexual orientation, and religion. We lead with race in our work to transform systems impacting all marginalized groups. So as far as I know at this point, we wanted to kind of define what identity means, because typically people will say, you'll see something that says like racial identity or something, but we wanted to be really inclusive and include identity in general, if that makes any sense.
Great. Thank you, Angela, for reading that. And also you'll see at the bottom there's a little City of Seattle, why lead with race. So the Seattle has also been doing some climate planning with equity-centered context, and that's what they developed to explain why they're leading with race. So if you want some further reading, you can go ahead and check that out too. Okay, so now we're going to launch into our breakout groups activity. So we will be split up into about 4 groups. So I think we'll have Jeff, one of our co-chairs, Max, co-chair, myself, and David, our awesome intern in the sustainability office, helping lead the groups. And what we're going to do is you'll have a link to a Google Doc that was in the chat, and you'll see some sticky notes for your groups section. And on the first slide, you'll be taking a look again at the vision statement that Angela just read to us, and noting some things that you really like about it on the sticky notes. And you'll spend about 4 or 5 minutes on that in your group and talking about it. And then on the second slide in your group, you'll be putting some things that you think are missing, or maybe that you didn't like as much, or that didn't strike you quite the right way. And then on the final slide, your group will be putting things about how can that vision statement help guide and direct the work that we're going to be doing. Oops, sorry, I had buildings and energy on there. I'm at transportation working group. Sorry, I just got that. But anyway, so we'll do that in the groups, and then the group leader will select a volunteer from that team, so that when we come back to the big group, we can share some of our thoughts and ideas about the draft vision statement and what we think about that. So, and if any questions or any technology challenges, just let me know, or Dawn will be back in the big room, I think, if you need help and can direct you. So.
Okay, so let me just make sure everyone sees the Google Doc, the link in the chat, and that you're able to open that. Just want to make sure you, if you are in group 1, you'll be in Max's room, and you're going to click on 2, 3, and 4. If you are placed in room 2, that means that you'll be in Jeff's group. Or is that, yes, Jeff.
Yeah.
And then group 3 is Wendy's, right?
Yep.
Okay. And then group 4 is going to be David's room. So let me make sure I have everyone in the right rooms here. And I will bounce around just in case anyone has any questions. You can always leave your room and come out and talk to me, or I think you can even send a message to me. So I'm going to go ahead and open the rooms and we'll see how it goes. And you have 15 minutes, so please make the most of each other and your time. And we are really looking forward to reviewing your input and talking about it together.
And so that planning and priority focus was something that our group was
Okay, great. Thanks. That's a lot of great feedback from that group. Let's see, we'll move on to Jeff's group and whoever your spokesperson is for that group.
Me, Carrie.
All right.
Sure. What we liked, we all agreed that the simplicity of the opening statement being easy to understand was great. We thought that that was a home run. Several of us brought up that we liked the explicit statement about not determining life expectancy, quality of life, or economic opportunity, because we think that when you think about those things, how do you make choices and take actions and tangible decisions that will achieve that? We did like the immediate emphasis on equity, and that housing and infrastructure were included as important components. What we didn't like, or what we thought was missing, we had really interesting discussion, very helpful discussion about why the words that we choose will matter when this is read by the public, by the general public. So for example, in the top sentence where it says where the vision for an equitable, healthy, et cetera, is one where carbon emissions are net zero. Does everyone in the general public know what carbon is? Do they understand what emissions are? And do they even know what net zero actually means? Is it only reducing carbon emissions, or is it also carbon capture? Is it methane? You know, what are the other things? So we talked about maybe changing that to be more layman friendly. A healthy and resilient Richmond is one where we have eliminated climate pollution. And then we also discussed, is net zero ambitious enough for a vision statement? So perhaps we should go beyond net zero, and that we are, that's why we switched it to eliminating climate pollution. And maybe we should go farther than just reaching net zero. And the discussion around that was, do we keep doing business as usual, but find new ways to offset business as usual to pat ourselves on the back and make us feel better? And then several of us brought up the last bullet, the identity extended definition seemed to be redundant or bogging down the rest of the statement because of its length. So maybe we could condense it or make it a little bit more concise. And then the last slide, how can this vision guide the transportation working group? The top left sticky in bold, make sure that we ask the community what mobility solutions they need and don't just assume that we know what that community will need. That was a really big one. But then we did also talk about what would it look like boldly to really transform transportation in the city, not just an equal swap for gas fueled vehicles for electric, which we agreed and discussed was also a part of this equation. But what more is there? Is it the related land use planning, treescape improvements, not just where's a bus stop placed or where's a bike lane installed, looking at what are the connected pieces that will also get back to equalizing the life expectancy, quality of life, and economic opportunity, and making sure that we have ways for people to reach the mode of transportation that they want and need.
Great, that was super, Carrie. You guys did a lot in 15 minutes, so I love it. I'll skip my group. Let's see, and Anthony, do you want to report out for our group?
Yeah, hey y'all, Anthony. I'm in Wendy's group. Probably gonna be a little bit repetitive, but what we like in our statement that we have is the statement overall is that we love that it's inclusive. A lot of people touch back on it. And we even said that the range of identities is included from range to of age and ability. So it really touches all living beings that have the same mindset. And we really love the equity, prioritizing equity with links with like clear net zero goal, and everyone is account ownership for the action and planning. So we really like the overall statement. It's really good. What we don't like, one of the star points that we had is many may need to explain of what is meant by carbon emissions. It's previously stated before from other ones. Sticky notes is like, what does that mean? Because the general public really don't really know as much. They hear it from there and there, or may never heard of it at all. And talking about like green infrastructure and perhaps how that's too narrow, depending on how the line define parks or greenhouses or LGs. And one interesting wording for the diction of the statement is maybe contribute to rather than take ownership. So just the broadness of environmental reasons connected with the community. But how can we use this in transportation guide? One of 2-star reading here is keying in on the first bullet by making sure all have equitable access to transportation resources that are clean, sustainable, and affordable throughout the city. Same can be said on the focus on transportation modes that reduce or do not produce any carbon emissions. So just talking back with the carbon wording to the open community. And again, it's just the idealism of bringing the community together in a healthy way with like efficient transportation means to all groups, wherever it needs to be in Richmond and throughout other cities. And uplift like the recommendations in RVA 300 and look at those models to use as guidelines.
Okay, great. Thank you, Anthony. And then finally, David's group. And
yeah, so our group talked about how much we like the overall statement. We like the focus on inclusivity and the point about empowering citizens to take ownership of their own contributions to climate change. And our group also really honed in on the word resilient. We thought that was a really good sort of encapsulation of a lot of what this vision statement had in mind and was sort of aiming for. The points that we thought maybe could make this a little stronger were just that it was sort of all over the place initially, where we'd like to see it perhaps maybe streamlined a little bit. So starting off with something like Richmond is a resilient city, but as it currently stands, a lot of the initial adjectives like equitable and healthy sort of tie into the back half of it, where we talked about race, identity, zip code, life expectancy. And so thinking about a way that we can make sure that sort of those things are highlighted, perhaps more streamlined. So we did some wordsmithing of it, but that's really because we liked the overall message. And so we're getting a little, I think, specific in the rewriting of it. But for the most part, really liked it. And again, really like to focus on resilience and inclusivity.
great, well, thank you. And if anybody else has anything they wanted to throw in there that didn't get said from your group, please feel free to go ahead and throw that in there, or any other comments about the vision statement.
I'll just encourage all of you, this that Google document is in our transportation working group share drive. So you can go in there anytime and add extra comments on the Post-it notes or underneath it, the bullets. If you have kind of longer concepts that you want to build out, go look at the other breakout groups and put stars next to things that you liked, because this is really important feedback for the roundtable, and they're going to be looking very closely at your feedback and processing it into their final draft. So just want to thank you for really taking the time to think deeply about it from your area of expertise as well as your own lived experience.
And Dawn, can I add one thing? Somebody had a really good question on one of the slides, which is they didn't understand what LEAD from race means, or lead with race. I don't have the statement in front of me. And I thought it would be really helpful just to explain that for everyone. We lead with race. And so that's the approach that we're taking through this planning process in terms of equity, which is leading with racial equity. And the reason we're doing that is based on the work that our team has been doing over the last few years and continuing. We've been working with a racial equity coach who's supporting us through this process. Our whole team has gone through racial equity training, and we're continuing to work together, both each of us personally and professionally as a team. And so we made a conscious decision that we really wanted to center this planning process not just in equity, but specifically racial equity. And the reason that was is because when you lead with racial equity, all other types of equity in terms of socioeconomic and equity based on somebody's accessibility and all the other types of equity really follow from that. And so if you hone in on the racial equity, the other equities follow. And so it was a conscious decision, and we spent a lot of time really thinking about that. And that's the approach that we're taking for this planning process. And happy to answer any other questions about that or any of the equity pieces. Thanks, Dawn.
Thank you, Alicia.
Could I just chime in for a quick second? And just to echo what Alicia said, so some of you may know, I worked for a few years at the City of Seattle Office of Sustainability and have a lot of experience working within that framework. And it's extraordinary and extraordinarily helpful. And it's the type of, it's applied not just for Seattle's Sustainability Office, but the whole idea around leading with race is applied throughout Seattle's programs. Whether it's sustainability or transportation, housing, policing, and it's something that really the community has bought into, and it has helped build the capacity of the community to be able to engage effectively in these types of processes, and it gets results. So I'm also happy to, if anybody has any questions about that or wants to understand more about how it has worked in practice, I'm happy to share as well. So I saw that you guys added the link there, and there's a really great material. So definitely encourage folks to dig in.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, no, appreciate the offer and your insight from working in Seattle. So that's great.
So this is Diane. That was my comment, Alicia. And I would say thank you for helping to explain it. There's probably a lot of people in the community that won't understand it. And in that vision statement, it might be better to say it differently so that it's very clear what you mean versus, something that maybe now the transportation group understands, but maybe not the general public understand.
Yeah, great point. Thank you, Diane.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, let's see. I think we'll go, Dawn, do you have your screen share again? And we'll get to.
Yes, excellent. So I put the link to the article that Chris was referencing that was on the slide in the chat. So you can open that PDF, refer back to it at any point. Chris, what an awesome resource we have in you and all of that lived experience with this. So thank you. And then Diane, great point. All of these are great points. So please, like I said, go back into that Google Doc and add your stars, add your commentary. I'm going to share my screen again, although it's nice to see all your faces.
All right, let's see, we've made it through the breakout activity. Okay, so this will just be separate from our discussion that we just had on vision statement. We're going to kind of just do an overall group check-in and see kind of how we're doing right now. Okay, thank you. So we want to just talk about is kind of overall, just in the last 3 sessions, or even just in this session, have we learned anything new? Have we started making any connections between the equity foundations and the work that we'll be doing in our transportation working group? Do we have a good understanding now of why we're centering it in equity and leading with race? I'll say too, or racial equity in our climate planning. Any epiphanies, any great ideas you've heard, or anything you want to share? Anyway, so this is kind of a time for kind of tying all this up, what we learned so far, and just sharing with each other if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, so I'll just add to this. This is a time for, we took a step back. This meeting was supposed to be, 2 different breakouts, one on vision, one on this equity tool that the roundtable is putting together that really incorporates all the questions to make sure that our strategies are based in the community priorities. But we decided to slow down a little bit, take a step back, extend these meetings so that there's more interaction and not so much, information sharing on our behalf. So really want to make sure that you've processed what we've presented so far, that's why we did review some slides from the first meeting. Want to answer any questions. You guys are bringing a lot of perspectives to the table, so please help us all connect those dots. And then in terms of, for the folks who weren't here today, what are the takeaways? What do we want to capture and then share with them? So those of us on our team as well, please speak up if there's anything that you think we need to kind of hammer home a little more, or anyone at all on the work group. If there's something that you want to add to this conversation, or from the round table, if you have some more context to add, this is really just your time to share. I'm also going to put the link to the survey in the chat so that you can add your comments to that if that's where you would like to put them. But Wendy and I will just open up the floor, and please feel free to share your thoughts.
Yeah, Dawn, if I could, I'll just add one thing before we open it up to everyone, is to just let folks know that this planning process, because we're doing something that truly is really innovative, it's also very iterative, and our team is behind the scenes. Each of us is trying to join as many of these working groups as possible, even if we're not facilitating them. And then we are debriefing after each working group. We are at the drawing board in between. And so we're really have the flexibility to change things on the fly. And that's what Dawn was referring to. We did the first of these working groups for this round on Monday, which was the environment working group. And that's where we tried to do too much and it didn't work. And so we very quickly were able to kind of regroup and do the rest of them, and they've been working much better. So the point of all of that is to say we really, really do value your feedback and your input, and we're taking it to heart and trying to make this process accomplish what we need to accomplish, but also to do it in a very meaningful and intentional way. And so you're the most important part of that. And so we really do value what you have to say, and to the greatest extent possible, we will put it into action. So whether it's to talk to us now during this meeting, or to email us at any time, or pick up the phone and call us one-to-one, we really do want to hear from you and hear what you think. So thank you.
Could I share an epiphany?
Please.
Lead with race. I'm familiar with that terminology and why it's valuable, but the ask why 5 times, that's huge to me. I'm doing it in my head over and over again. So at the final document, if somebody asks, well, why do we lead with race? If you do an example of that for each group, I think that's really impactful as to outlining why we lead with race.
Great. Well, thank you. And we'll be sure to share the video that Dawn referenced earlier with everyone tomorrow. So I think Desiree explains about the 5 whys. Anyone else want to share?
I can make a comment.
Okay, Anthony.
I really like that I was kind of like oblivious because school and everything is in the way and fogging up stuff. But I really like that other working groups are conjoining and seeing how other working groups can like help other things like I don't know, wording, stuff just imagined to be what can be real. So like combining other working groups and other opinionated people together on the same aspect is like very like cool for me, just to see what other people views, because I wouldn't have looked at something a different way if someone didn't say anything. So I like that. And also that it's all coming together very shortly. And I know 2022 is far away, but we take 2 blinks, watch it be there. So yeah.
Great. Thanks, Anthony. Yeah, no, it is good, to kind of cross-pollinate amongst the different working groups, like you said, and, because everybody's kind of looking at things from different aspects. So the more we can kind of get that across instead of just vertically integrated is better. So thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much going back and forth on that one workflow slide. If I had put in all the arrows of the back and forths, it would have just been a big mess, because that's what the staff is doing behind the scenes, as Alicia said, in between the meetings, really making sure that all of those comments, no matter how big or small, that they are really being heard, and that your survey feedback from the last meeting was incorporated into how we ran this meeting. So please continue to give us your feedback, and thank you, Anthony. That's excellent point.
All right. If nobody has anything, I don't want to keep you here for the full time. So we'll go ahead and go to wrap up and next steps. So homework, sorry, you have some little bit of homework, but again, as Dawn said, you can keep adding stuff to the sticky notes that you were working on today if you want to. That will still be open and available, and you can get to that through our Google Drive link. And then if you have a chance, please do take a look at the Seattle's Why Lead with Race, as Chris said. So hopefully some good information to be gleaned from that. And we'll be getting the equity tool draft content out again. I think I sent it once, but we'll go ahead and get that out again. So our next meeting will be January 7th, same time, same place. And we'll be looking at the equity tool on that one. And for right now, if you can take a minute, since we do have time left in our session, to go ahead and fill out the feedback survey. And again, we'll take a look at that and see what we can do to adjust and improve and make this a great experience for everybody. And with that, I guess that's all I had to share, and wish everybody great holidays until I see you again in January. And Dawn, I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to add or not.
And maybe to add, our staff will be happy we'll stay on the call for a few minutes. And if anyone has any questions they want to ask or anything else they want to talk about, feel free to stay on the line.
Right. Well, thank you for your time, and look forward to seeing you again in January.
And for those of you who do stick around, I know that in our waste group this morning, there was a lot of great dialogue, and talking about the vision especially stirred up a lot of good ideas that they're like, we want to capture these great ideas in these conversations. And so we created a column on their contact sheet where they could add their good ideas. And I found this Jamboard in the Google Drive where people can kind of put their own Post-it notes. So, each working group is completely different, but if you have suggestions for how to collaborate between meetings, or you have some great epiphany that you want to share, we really do want to hear that.
And I'll add one of those to our group's drive too.
All right, thanks. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thanks so much,
Max. You too.
Max.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye, everyone.
Could I ask, is membership in this group kind of set in stone, or if we have people who we think would have a good voice in here, can we pitch those folks, or if we have somebody?
Yeah, I especially value your opinion, because you are in the Buildings and Energy group. You sat in on the co-chair planning meeting for the waste group this morning, and now you're in this one. So I'd love to hear anything you have to say.
Sarah, and I struggle to pronounce her last name after knowing her for like 7 years or something like that, is the head of Ram Bikes at VCU. So she's really involved with not only biking culture around here and does it through a scale of equity, like, because they're doing it where they're teaching kind of kids in marginalized neighborhoods how to do bike maintenance, how to ride safely, and things of that nature. And she's just somebody that every time I'm in the meeting for transportation, I just think if Sarah was here, she would be like a super person to have.